The experiences of childhood and the minds of children have long been idealized. The poet William Wordsworth famously said that the child is father of the man. And then there was this guy.
Suffer the little children to come unto me.
I recently had the chance to rewatch Disney's animated version of Peter Pan with my kids, and of course, its portrayal of these themes was very nostalgic. The story is beloved, but seeing it through new eyes, I couldn't help feeling disappointed. Sure, there are some obvious reasons to feel this way these days. I also found myself turned off by the way the film portrayed the notions of childhood and growing up. I also couldn't help comparing it to another animated film centered on childhood, Hayao Miyazaki's groundbreaking film, My Neighbor Totoro. Like Peter Pan, the film has many charming and memorable elements, but I would argue that My Neighbor Totoro succeeds thematically where Peter Pan falls short. Here are two questions that I think are central to both of these films. What about childhood is worth retaining or rediscovering in adulthood? And what does it mean to grow up? So what does Peter Pan have to say about childhood that is worth retaining? We see the lives of the children in the film as imaginative, full of wonder and fantastical stories. The children hold on to high-minded ideals and are fueled by a sense of adventure.
You're next, Hook! This time you've gone too far!
Their whimsy and imagination allow them to live more fully in the present moment without being dragged down by the drudgery of adult life. The character Peter Pan is the obviously representative archetype of all of these qualities. In My Neighbor Totoro, we see many similar characteristics in its portrayal of the sisters Satsuki and Mei. They are heartwarmingly innocent, they relish simple joys. In the same way that the children's innocence and inherent optimism allows them to fly over the world of adults in Peter Pan, the perspective of the children in My Neighbor Totoro is also described as automatically insightful, since only the children can see the local spirits.
I used to be able to see them when I was your age. So you've seen them too. That's very interesting.
It's no surprise that Mei, the youngest and most innocent, is the best mediator between the spirit world and the real world. And in general, I think that Mei is one of the best portrayals of the spirit of childhood in any film. One of my favorite aspects of this film is that the children are inherently attracted and connected to nature, which, like most Miyazaki films, is closely linked to the spirit world. I think my favorite scene in this regard is the morning after the girl's magical flight with Totoro. Despite experiencing the truly miraculous the night before, they still rejoice in what they also see as wonderful and miraculous the next day, the growth of new seedlings from Totoro's seeds. Where I see these two films truly diverging, though, is when we arrive at our second question. What does it mean to grow up? In Peter Pan, the thought of growing up is immediately thrust into a negative light.
Because I have to grow up tomorrow.
Grow up?
Tonight's my last night in the nursery.
More than that, it is described as an either-or scenario. Once you grow up, you can never go back. There is no in-between stage. And once you become an adult, all the wonders of childhood, the stories, the adventure, the light-hearted fun, must come to an end. I suppose the ending scene does hint at the possibility that Mr. Darling could rediscover some of what he had as a child.
You know, I have the strangest feeling that I've seen that ship before. A long time ago, when I was very young.
But overall, the choice seems two-sided. Fly to Neverland, or face the inevitable weight of the responsibility and the fussiness of adult life. Now, I love a lot in Peter Pan, the symbol of the ticking crocodile, the idea that Neverland is found in happy thoughts, and the character of the perpetually adolescent Peter Pan. But I think that a lot of the thematic depth missing is in part a sad case of the book and play being better than the film. Take, for example, the play's exploration of facing the inevitability of death as part of growing up, captured in one of its most famous lines.
To die will be an awfully big adventure.
This is completely left off in the animated version. Other factors involved in the growing up process explored in the book, such as the only briefly mentioned subject of motherhood in Wendy's case, are just explored half-heartedly or not at all. For the most part, I think the film overemphasizes aesthetics and seems to say primarily that growing up means no more fun. But I think that My Neighbor Totoro, on the other hand, handles the question of growing up with much more nuance. At the beginning of the film, the family's new house is emblematic of their new stage of life. The innocence and excitement of the sisters as they explore are contrasted with the darkness and decaying structures around them. Reminders of death are everywhere, and the house is even said to be haunted. Additionally, the subject of the children facing fear is present from the beginning of the story.
Everybody try laughing. Then whatever scares you will go away.
But Dad, I'm not scared. What? I'm not scared.
Even Totoro himself has an initially frightening appearance. This all makes sense when it is revealed that the mother of the family is potentially fatally ill, that she may herself be on the verge of decay. This is what truly marks their new stage of life. The film then seems to suggest that facing fears and embracing the harsh realities of life, including the inevitable death of our loved ones, is perhaps the most difficult part of what it means to shoulder the burden of maturity.
It's not fair! You want her to die, May? Is that what you want? No! You're such a baby! Just grow up!
Where the creators of Peter Pan shied away from this very subject, it is so impressive to me that My Neighbor Totoro was able to realistically present this theme while still being fully accessible and beloved by children.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Like the film's motif of a seed, a classic symbol of life coming out of death, the children are able to face these grim realities and fears without losing hope. I think the film suggests that one can endure life's tragedies and not completely lose one's innocence, that we can face the dark and the frightening and embrace them like a neighbor. Another thing that I love about this film is that unlike Peter Pan, it does not present the growing up process as a sudden, all-or-nothing leap.
So it was really nice.
The older sister, Satsuki, plays an important role in representing the phase of adolescence between childhood and adulthood. She is still curious, imaginative, and awed by nature, but she is slower to see the spirits.
I hope I'll be able to see him someday, too.
She is hit harder with the heavier burden of responsibility in her family. She must care for May and be the mediator between the adult world on behalf of her little sister.
The girls act so strong, but I think it's been harder than they let on. Especially Satsuki. She tries to act so adult.
And perhaps most importantly, we do not see the idealized qualities of children completely lost in the adults in the film. The granny is a key advisor to the kids and the one that informs them about the spirits in the first place. And their father, despite the responsibilities of work and the heavy weight of an ill spouse, is so different from the fussy and grumpy Mr. Darling in Peter Pan. May and Satsuki's father embodies so much of what I hope to be for my kids, because he seems able to retain some of these idealized qualities of childhood. He has a fun-loving and light-hearted spirit. He fosters curiosity and imagination. He retains a childlike sense of wonder and appreciation for nature. One could say that May and Satsuki's father bridges the gap between Neverland and the real world in a way that Peter Pan never could.